Antonio
things
Brown's
right.
gonna go to frickin' the XFL, I think.
No, let's not go there. We're
What else
live. We're
has he got to
live
do?
right now.
All right.
We're live right now. Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Box Report. You just caught us in a little bit of background discussions, uh, fodder.
Behind the scenes.
Uh,
Behind the scenes.
yeah, behind the scenes fodder. I am your host, Michael. Joining me this week, Gail from Community Digital News, Jacob from Jab Hook Boxing. What's going on, lady and gent?
Hey, good evening, everybody.
Hello.
In the chat tonight.
Who do you want to?
This is episode 283 of Pound for Pound Box Report. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Boxing Report, we're a live YouTube show, podcast, as well as blog discussing all things boxing. The motto is, when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When boxing is bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, we will talk about it. If you want to find out all information regarding Pound for Pound Box Report, the blog page is the place to hit up, p4pboxreport.wordpress.com. That is the link. Check the top right of the blog page. You'll find links where to find us all over social media, where to find us on all RSS feeds that carry podcasts, where you can donate. Got to catch me at PayPal donation links. And also, last but certainly not least, the link to my own personal fitness page. I am an online fitness coach for Beachbody. If you're interested in fitness challenges, getting ready to start one in March, Let's Build Together Fitness Challenge. If you're interested in any of the fitness programs on Beachbody, the PIO for the ladies, the 80 Days of Sessions with the ladies really love, other programs like P90X, Insanity, Shift Shop, 6 Weeks of the Work and whatnot. Please check out the link to my online fitness coaching page on Pound for Pound Box Report. Let's get things started. Recapping what went down this past weekend, and let's go ahead and start with the big fight. It took place at the MGM Grand this past Saturday in Las Vegas, the rematch between Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. And I'll start things with you, Gil. Ladies first, as always. Last week, I predicted Fury would win. I had my reservations. Even though I thought that Fury would win the rematch, I didn't, and I don't think anyone saw Fury doing to Wilder what he did. Dominated him from jump, in my opinion, en route to a very, very surprising 7th-round stoppage. Put him down twice in the 3rd and in the 5th. Wilder bleeding from the ear, bleeding from the mouth, beat up basically from pillar to post all night long. There's an old adage that if you come in with the mindset and you have the attitude of a person or of a fighter who thinks that you can just walk in and knock everyone out, you're going to eventually face someone who is smart, who is skilled, and who is tough. And that's what Wilder faced. He had his comeuppance, if you will. He got, quote unquote, exposed in a brutal fashion. Did you see that, Gail?
You know, I refuse to use the word exposed for any fighter.
Well,
every fighter can
I
have
use that. I use that for maybe the quote unquote casuals, but for those in the know who watch Wilder, who watch boxing on a regular basis, you know the flaws. You know that it's problematic when guys come in thinking they can just bowl guys over. You knew he was limited. You know that in spite of his power, the skill wasn't exactly always there.
But when you've got the big right-hand eraser, the big power punch, which up until Saturday had served Deontay Wilder perfectly well, there were predictions on either side of the aisle. And the truth is, if you looked at my wrap-up of predictions specifically from fighters and trainers, not media, not celebrities, it was skewed in favor of Wilder. Now, maybe there was a little built-in American bias there. We are more familiar with him. I don't know. The betting odds were in Wilder's favor. And certainly, if you bet against the type of win. If you'd put down $5 on Fury by knockout, you'd have a nice big fat bank account this week. Nobody picked Wilder to stop, or nobody picked Fury to stop Wilder, just as nobody was betting on Wilder to outbox Fury. So, and no shade intended at you, Michael, at all for using the word exposed, but it is a word we use very casually when sometimes a fighter simply has an off night. Everybody who's a gym rat, everybody who's into fitness, you know, you've got that week or that day, you get in there and just, boy, nothing's working. You don't feel it. It's imperceptible. What happened? Sometimes you really can't even figure out what it was, but you say, well, you dust yourself off. I'll be all right next week. And you are all right next week. But guys at this level, they don't have that luxury. They've got to come in ready, on point, perfectly trained, nothing out of place, nothing messing up their schedule, their routines, every variable accounted for. And they've got to have a plan B, C, and be able to pivot. And what we really found out is that Deontay Wilder was not exposed, but we did discover that something that we really all already knew is that he really has one speed and he's a fairly one-dimensional fighter, meaning that he's got one style, one MO. It's worked for him. He's had no motivation to change it up to now. Even in the last fight against Luis Ortiz, where you could argue he had lost every round up until he knocked Ortiz out. Was the writing on the wall then? Maybe. Here's the difference. We all know Tyson Fury talks a whole lot of shit. I mean, we all know some of the crazy ass stuff he said leading up to this fight. You never know whether he's kidding or not. I've stood right in front of him and he's looked right at me, including the infamous masturbation comment, which I won't get into in any more detail than that. And you think,
yeah, let's not.
He's selling it, you know. He says some crazy things, but he also, when he talks about himself, his approach to the sport, he's dead serious. And we found out that when he talks about what he's going to do, inevitably, shockingly, he can back it up. I have never seen any fighter at this level in a high stakes fight reinvent his approach from the inside out the way Fury did it. He turned from a technical, defense-minded, angles punching, volume punching boxer to a come forward aggressive machine. It's such a stunning transformation. Not only were the fans stunned, clearly Wilder and his corner were stunned as well. I don't think Wilder had a clue what to do with him. I don't think Wilder has seen an opponent coming at him, forcing him back that way, probably since his amateur days. And he was unfortunately unprepared for it. He simply was. We've all heard the crazy excuse about the heavy costume. I think that's a smokescreen and a convenience.
We'll definitely get into that.
I think he was simply so caught by surprise. He didn't have time to gather his wits about him. His corner didn't have time to recalibrate. And in those few rounds where he was still recalculating the formula, unfortunately, that's when he got caught by a series of punches off a left jab, a right hook, followed by a left that frankly was straight out of Wilder's own playbook. And Wilder went down so hard on that canvas, everyone heard the thud inside the MGM Grand Arena. Everyone heard it. And believe me, that place was loud. And we still heard him go down. And at that moment, everyone in the place knew that fight was over. Wilder, much respect to him for soldiering on. He has said he wanted to go out on his shield, but he had no legs under him. without any legs. All his attention was, and all his remaining energy was being given simply to standing up and moving. It left him nothing at all to leverage any strength for punching power. Everything he threw was ineffective. He did accurately land on Fury multiple times between the 4th and the 7th rounds when the fight was stopped. The punches had no effect whatsoever. And in the early rounds of the fight, before Wilder got knocked down, he did land some good punches, good solid punches, the kind that in the past we've seen knock men down in one clean swoop. But Fury gaining that weight and making himself, the human equivalent of a block of granite in there, it worked. He was able to ward that stuff off. He brushed it off like he didn't even feel it. He did have a sizable bruise on his temple after the fight. When he came out for the post-fight news conference, he referenced it. He pointed at it. He said, well, I don't really remember how I got that. But he did get hit hard enough to have a fist-sized bruise on his face. But he stood up to it. It was simply one of the most brilliantly planned and executed fights I think I've ever seen. Much respect, much due credit to Fury for pulling it off.
Follow-up question, Gail, before we go to Jacob and we talk about a lot of the stuff that's been said after the fight, particularly about Wilder and his rationale for why he lost. In terms of your comment about Wilder being surprised, how and why? Because to your point, you've noted that when it comes to in the ring, the boxer, Fury is one of the most honest fighters out there. He said from throughout the lead up that he was going to charge Wilder. He was going to come forward and try to knock him out. Why didn't they believe him? Knowing that, why did it seem as if not only Wilder the fighter, but the corner didn't have a plan for that? That's question one. Question two, I was commenting on Twitter during the fight that because Wilder was taking so much punishment, the fight could have been stopped sooner. I know Wilder, after the fight, said that he wanted to go out on his shield. Okay, fine. But the corners is supposed to protect you ultimately at the end of the day. Given your vantage point at ringside, as well as your colleagues covering the fight at ringside, could this fight or should this fight have been stopped sooner?
Let's go to the first question because that's much easier to answer. Come on. Fury talks so much shit that it isn't a given that you believe any of it. I mean, he says some truly crazy, bizarre things, I think. Mostly.
Yeah, but when it comes to him and what he does, what it comes for my argument is in the ring, his ability, what he's going to do, and what he plans to do, he lets you know. And the question is, can you stop it?
In this case, he claimed he was going to completely turn around his approach. That is virtually impossible for the average boxer to do when they're north of 30 and they've had 30 fights. I mean, the pattern is in place. There are a lot of guys who say, yeah, I'm going to change my training. I'm going to switch this. I'm going to switch that. How many times have we actually seen a wholesale change in someone's style? That virtually never happens. Now, what's interesting to me is in hindsight, which we have the benefit of, looking back at what Fury had to do after he was cut in the fight against Otto Wallin, he had to fight coming forward to survive. That was a dress rehearsal, now that we look back at it, for what happened Saturday. Other than the cut, it was the best possible preparation he could have gotten. which is truly amazing. Let's go to the stoppage question. On Media Row and with me in particular, I thought the fight should have been stopped several rounds before it was. It was evident probably by the end of the 5th round that Fury was not going to recover. He was still extremely shaky on his legs. And yes, was he fighting back? Yes. Was he throwing punches? Yes, he certainly was. There was not a bit of steam on anything he threw. There was no way at that point after the 5th round, or maybe let's say for mathematics' sake, you give him through the 6th round. After 2 knockdowns through 6 rounds, if you do the math, he would have had to have a stoppage to win, and that was not going to happen. At that point, there is absolutely no reason to let a man take any more punishment. Apparently, there were arguments in the corner between JD's, who is the head trainer, and Mark Breland, who is in essence the assistant trainer. However, Mark Breland is the one who's a former boxer himself and a former title holder at welterweight. He gets it. He's the one that threw in the towel. What I was disturbed about as a side issue is after the fight, in the post-fight news conference, JD's pointed him out and threw him under the bus. And I think that was really bad form. If they have a disagreement about it, you guys hash it out when you get back to the gym, not in front of the world. Breland did what he thought was right to save Fury from punishment. And unfortunately, I think it was a little bit too late. And we will never really know until Wilder's career is over how much of a psychological beatdown he took taking that kind of punishment. There are fighters who never recover from something like that. Physical damage aside, forget that part. He's very, very fortunate that Wilder seems in general to be okay. I would hate for him to have looked back years from now on a Patrick Day situation. You just cannot be messing with that stuff. I don't care what the fighter says. It is not your job to capitulate to what they want. It is your job to protect their health as their corner. And I'm very glad Breland did finally throw the towel and get referee Kenny Bayless to stop the fight when he did, although truthfully it could have been stopped a lot sooner.
Yeah, listen, the fact that we like the sport, the fact that we cover the sport by proxy, whether we will admit it or not, we all like we like violence to a certain extent. Just being honest and brutally honest here. But there's a difference between liking a certain level of violence and physicality and just being an outright sadist. And that's not good. We've just had, 2 fighters passed away last year. You do not want anything close to that, particularly given the high-profile nature of this fight. So I think Breland was more in his right to stop the fight when he did, and I will continue to argue that the fight probably should have been stopped sooner. I want to give some acknowledgement to folks in the chat for their first of all for joining us, as well as their comments. Beef Space official boxing score. B Space said that Wilder's feet look slower. His punches did too. He said maybe the weight gain wasn't good for him. It could be age. Official scorecard boxing science, said Wilder showed huge heart despite his technical limitations. But what I really hate is the possibility of him firing the only person from the corner that isn't a yes man. He says that Fury did a very good job in previous fight against Wallin. If we take all the circumstances into consideration, but people were only talking about how he was supposed to destroy Wallin. He also said that Breland should have punched Shelly Finkel in his face. JD is just a yes man trying to preserve his job. I'll go to you, Jacob, as well as Daniel, who joined us. Daniel from the Inscriber. try to unwrap kind of the back and forth that Gail and I have had within your breakdown of this fight. Do you also agree that the fight should have been stopped sooner? Um, your overall observation.
To answer your first question, I'm not going to say that it should have been stopped sooner. I think the ref was, at that point in the 7th round, Wilder was hurt and Fury had him against the ropes in the corner and was just throwing punches, and Wilder wasn't throwing back. So even if they didn't throw in the towel, I think Bayless would have stepped in and stopped the fight. Because a lot of people, like some of the people I watched it with, they actually thought that the ref stopped the fight because they didn't see the towel get thrown in from the other side of the ring. So I think the outcome would have been the same. So, Wilder could be pissed all he wants and his trainers can be pissed all he wants, but, like you guys said, after the year that boxing had last year with the deaths, nobody wants to see anybody get, seriously hurt. It didn't seem to me like, Fury was throwing anything like crazy hard, and that Wilder was like super, like, I don't know, like Meldrick Taylor Chavez hurt, like, just completely, busted up. But I really honestly believe Wilder just never recovered from that first knockdown. If you look at the punch, it has some similarities to the way that Andy Ruiz caught Joshua, it was like basically Wilder kind of turned his head and his right hand landed right behind the ear. So close to being an illegal blow, but not Fury's fault because Wilder turned his head, but it was close to the back of the head. And so that kind of punch, I think, just really messed him up. And Wilder, his legs in general are not, they're skinny. He has like really skinny legs, which is so amazing because he's able to generate so much power, with his, he's usually like a lower weight, like around under 220, somewhere around there. And, he doesn't, and the way he punches and a lot of times the power comes from your legs, but he has like really skinny legs. But I think he was just really hurt from that. And he was never able to recover. Never be able to get his bearings back. He was on shaky legs all the way through. Fury, I'm not a fan of either guy, but Fury did what he needed to do, and he proved the point. He won every single round. The only one that's maybe close is maybe the second round, but like I said, by the third round it was over because Wilder was seriously hurt, and I don't think he was going to recover. The thing that I didn't like that Fury did was he had his man hurt, and in a way, he kind of gave Wilder a chance to maybe land his right hand, and change the fight. Even though it wasn't as strong as it was at the beginning of the fight. Is that he when he got inside, he did a lot of like headlocking and holding and like kind of, and he even got a point taken away from kind of like doing the rabbit punching and stuff like that. It's like, you don't need to do that. Like he's done it in other fights before, and I wish he didn't do that kind of stuff. But he won the fight, hands down. It's speaking on what you were talking about earlier, like why didn't they believe that he was going to do what he said he was going to do? Fury said a lot of times that he's going to knock guys out, and then he takes them the distance. Like he makes predictions all the time that don't come true. So I mean, there is no reason to believe him, but this is shame
But
on.
even after the first 2 rounds, when he established himself that he was coming forward, he came out open from opening bell and bum rushed this dude, stepped to this dude, and did so all fight long. What was the adjustments in the corner?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Shame on the Wilder camp, though, is because we know that Wilder is his fundamentals are not good. I've never, I don't think anybody agrees that they're good. He's always been bailed out by his right hand. Um, he can lose, and he's even said it himself. He can lose every single. Someone could have to fight the perfect fight against him. All he needs is, whatever, the 5 seconds to land his right hand, and that's been the theme of his career. He has a decent jab that was non-existent. But I think, his team. I'm not gonna, I just don't think that him getting late into the game and whatnot. I don't think he's ever gonna really improve that much. He's kind of a one-trick pony. He's got a great trick. It's maybe one of the most devastating tricks in all of boxing, maybe in the history of boxing. But it is one trick, and Fury was able to kind of get there first in a sense. And Wilder, because he's never really had to go to a plan B because he's always been bailed out by his plan A, which is land that right hand. I think, overconfidence and his just the way his career has gone. I just don't think they had a plan B. I don't think they even if even if they would have tried to train for that type of style, I don't think they would have been able to put it together fast enough and be able to kind of train this old dog this new trick. And it's the heavyweights. So again, the punch, that one punch changed the fight. If he doesn't land that punch, maybe it's a different story. But he did land that punch, and these are heavyweights, and Fury came in heavier, and he's 270 pounds on the scale. He probably weighed more at fight night. But that's what happens. But Wilder's going to have to get back on the horse, and I think Fury is definitely beatable. I don't think everybody's comparing him to like, oh, this is the next coming of Muhammad Ali for the heavyweight division. The guy has beaten two guys, two names. I want to see him fight some of the top of the heavyweight division before we anoint him the next Muhammad Ali, because he moves good for a big guy, but I think he's definitely beatable. And it just kind of annoys me that people are kind of overlooking his resume and just making him seem to be better than I think he really is. But credit to him, he came in and did what he needed to do. And I'm sure we're going to talk about after Daniel. We'll talk about the excuses, which I hate.
Yeah, we have to go into that. I see Gus from Corruption and Boxing has joined us. I'm glad that he did, because in the news section, I want to ask him about a specific topic over in Asia. First, I'll get Daniel into this discussion, and you can follow up, Gus. Your reaction to the fight, what Fury did, what Wilder didn't do, the corner work, and everything in between.
The fight changed in one punch to me, in a way. Now, we have to admit that punch that Fury landed was right in the gray area where you considered it a blatant rabbit punch or not. But he hit strong enough that, for all intents and purposes, it busted Wilder's eardrum. And
well, in the days after, they said that the eardrum wasn't busted, but he did suffer a cut that suffered several stitches inside the ear.
Yeah, cut to the ear. Internal bleeding, though.
Not
right by the ear.
Not internal bleeding. Exterior.
Oh, okay.
Exterior cut to the ear. It bled like a son of a bitch. Apparently, he was stitched up in the dressing room. He did not require any hospital visit, and no busted eardrum. But this still, you don't have to have your eardrum busted to have your equilibrium messed up by a temple shot. It happens.
That's exactly what I'm about to go into that area.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was about to go into that area because it's mainly one area, but when you get hit in that gray area, and unfortunately, when you have somebody like Wilder, that one of the things that annoys people is how wide his stance is. When you don't have any equilibrium and you have your wide stance, you're pretty much on spaghetti legs. So I'm not really surprised how it ended up being the way it was turning out, because we have to admit it. Also, Fury was pulling a few pages out of the Klitschko playbook as far as leaning on Wilder, putting the weight on him, and tiring him out. You tire yourself out and you have no equilibrium, you pretty much have no shot. As good as Wilder's right hand is, you pretty much have no shot. when it comes to the stoppage, I was one of the people that initially did not see the towel being thrown. So I gave credit to Kenny Bayless for stopping the fight when he did. Because Wilder had really, really, really nothing left. And luckily, Mark Breland understood well enough that the situation was untenable. There's no way that Wilder was going to land a right hand to hurt Fury, let alone land a flush. So he did what a lot of corners that do what they were supposed to do. They saved the fighter from themselves. I understand where Wilder's coming from, saying, I want to go out of my shield. And I understand JD's wanting to honor those wishes, but at the same time, your corner's there to save you from yourself. And that's what Mark Breland did. Now, is it sad that it had to take that for Wilder to probably realize there has to be some changes to be made? Maybe. I know Jacob mentioned like the litany of things that Wilder said or the excuses that came out of it. I'm gonna leave when we talk about that. We're gonna talk about that because there's a lot of crap that came out of it. But at the end of the day, Fury came in with a game plan. He understood where his flaws were in the first fight, and he adjusted to them. And you have to give full props to him. I always said if it was in a boxing match, Fury was going to win. So, but he won by knockout, and now we all know what everybody wants to see, but we know we're pretty much probably not going to get it at least for the next 1.5 years.
I'll go to you, Gus. We talked about this fight a little bit on Skype, this rematch. Having some days to reflect and ponder what went down. Your observation of Fury's dominant win over Wilder.
So much to reflect on the fight, Mike. The preparation before and the aftermath, which is, emanating now. But Mike, the facade that was the career of Deontay Wilder has been irrevocably damaged. For so long, his promoters and his matchmakers have allowed him to gorge upon a plethora of blown up super middleweights, light heavyweights, and an abundance of cruiserweight journeyman fighters who he was able to dispose of. His boxing ability has stagnated, and I believe it has regressed from even towards the end of his professional amateur career, where he was still very much a novice. But even early on in his professional career, Mike, he was developing sometimes an educated left hand. I saw, hooking beautifully sometimes off his lead hand. There were small elements of improvement that were encouraging, but sadly, the yes men and the expansion in his entourage, he's just focused on power and the monetary rewards and the materialistic goods that he's obsessed with.
For me, he hasn't improved since the first Deverne fight.
He hasn't improved since his 13th professional fight, Mike. Word has it that even in his training camps, Mike, he does minimal cardio work. He works on a series of drills on 2 circular pads. Doesn't even really hit the heavy bag to develop his body punching. It's all about conditioning and calibrating his power, which has been his saving grace. Now, against very limited opposition, there is a good propensity that his power has got him out of trouble. even though if you really explore the fights, how many of the fights in which he's lost so many of the rounds, but it's just one knockdown. So it will catch up with you eventually. Against mediocre opposition, you can get away with it, like the Gerald Washingtons, all of these ex-football players who don't have an amateur background. But when you're up against elite fighters and the only elite fighter he's faced really is Tyson Fury. And it was an experiment, Mike, that went wrong.
Luis Ortiz, you wouldn't put him as a top heavyweight?
Luis Ortiz as an amateur was pretty decent, Jacob, but as a professional, no, I don't believe so. That was a veteran Luis Ortiz, way past his best. But this is the problem, Mike. Tyson Fury was a cherry-picking experiment for Wilder. He fought a 400-pound guy. It was all about getting financial leverage for Anthony Joshua. Now fighting somebody from the UK who was the former unified champions, all of the belts which Anthony Joshua was currently holding. So Wilder was expected to dispose of Fury very quickly so that he could return to the negotiating table and try and get a 50-50 or as near enough to a 50-50 split for a mega fight. That was their intention all along, but they underestimated the recuperation and the resilience of a Tyson Fury. They had their opportunity in the first fight, and they were very fortunate that they were able to buy the judges so that they could accrue a draw. But the Tyson Fury subsequently had an amazing camp with a new trainer, and you could see elements of Sugar Hill that he implemented. There was certain bits of a partial shoulder roll. I saw a little bit of Adonis Stevenson in him. He controlled the high ground, didn't allow Wilder to establish the lead hand, was super aggressive. And the key was, Mike, that Wilder capitulated under the pressure. And that is what really exacerbated the problem in his legs. And Fury intensified that with a lot of the feints that he was exerting, to the pressure, the stalking him down, not giving Wilder the time and the space that he desires. So he could only really fire quick jabs to the pit of Fury's stomach. But Tyson would follow up, and I didn't see any of the pitter-patter. I saw improvements in his punching ability. There was no inside of the hands that much. He was really arcing, better rotation in his punches. And for all those who think they were illegal punches, really don't understand boxing. When two fighters are face-to-face and fighter A throws a hooking or an arcing punch, and fighter B literally turns his body and his head, and it hits the back of his head, that is not an illegal blow, even if it results in a knockout. It's very different to when two fighters are actually inside the pocket and they're literally chest to chest, and if fighter A attempts to throw a shot, if his starting hand is parallel to the back of fighter B's head and he cannot see the front of his face and it hits him at the back of the head, then that is clearly an illegal punch and the referee will call that. So no, I didn't see any premeditated sort of illegal blows from the outside, but Fury definitely did. He used the benefits of his numerical body weight on the inside, leaning on him, apply him in a vice headlock. So be it. Wilder has resorted to knocking at people in the past using wrist shots, the inside of his hand, sometimes even his elbow as well. So it eventually neutralizes itself out, Mike. And all I can say for that decrepit relic, Shelley Finkel, he has no audacity to be berating Mark Breland. But people in Europe have got to realize that an attorney's position is very different in the United States than what it is than anywhere else. As an attorney in the States is very much responsible for brokering deals on the behalf of its clients. And in Europe, that's not really the position. So I think Shelley Finkel, the blood-sucking vampire that he is now seeing the end of the gravy train, which is his modus operandi. He absolutely does not care about the well-being or the longevity of his fighter. Once Deontay Wilder goes, it's on to the next sucker for him. whereas Mark Breland has a long affiliation with his fighter, is an ex-boxer, understands all of the trials and tribulations inside the ring, and I applaud him. You probably realize it was going to cost him his job, but that is a guy who genuinely cares for his fighter, and I think he threw in the towel. I have absolutely no problem. The fight was really over after round 3. The fight definitely should have been stopped before. Had it continued, he would have taken systematic, perhaps even permanent damage to his body as well. So a fantastic performance from Tyson Fury. Dominant display throughout. It's been a great few days, Mike, just to see the reaction from all of the communities that have been artificially inflating Deontay Wilder for so long as one of the greatest ever. But well, we've seen what happened to them.
Yeah, the Wilder fanboys and stands who've been, in my opinion, have lacked objectivity in the praising of Wilder. They've had to take it subsequently in the gut. You can be a fan of someone, you can praise someone, but again, when it's blind praise, when it's fandom that goes to the point of fanaticism, that crosses over to the point of fanaticism without any real objectivity, when said fighter loses, particularly in the way that Wilder lost, you come off looking, having egg on your face is just being polite, to say the least.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
show some humility.
Right.
There was
show some humility,
and it was expected, Mike. I knew it would simply be multitude of excuses. It's all a damage limitation exercise, and sadly, Mark Breland is the scapegoat now.
Yeah, you fall into the trap that some Manny Pacquiao fans go into in their fanaticism. Same with Floyd, same with so many other fighters. It's just not a good look, and it's certainly not a good look for some of these Wilder fans, and particular Wilder fans, which I could really go there as a Black person specifically, but I'm a leave that alone for now. That is until they try to come for me personally, and then I will ether them. But Daniel, you've been in some of these communities and some of these chats, and you know what I'm talking about. Let's move on.
Yes.
Let's move on about that and talk aftermath and future. Wilder has drawn a lot of criticism for essentially going to, I believe, Kevin Alley and other places and blaming the warm-up suit, not the warm-up suit, but the suit that he chose to walk out in, 40-pound suit, as essentially saying that because it was heavy, it weighed down on his legs and it inhibited his performance. Also, you guys touched on the firing of rumor firing of Breland, and the back and forth between Breland and Finkel and others within Wilder's corner in the aftermath. Conspiracy theories has been going all over the place, particularly on the YouTube boxing community and whatnot, to the point where it's like, come on, guys, stop it. Just admit that Wilder lost. There's nothing wrong with that. He just had to lick his wounds and rebuild himself and try to come back. That's it. So talk about all the stuff that's been going on in the days after the fight. And if anybody who wants to jump in, please do. Let me just say on a personal note, Wilder can't use the excuse of the suit, and his followers can't use the excuse of that suit when A, he was the one who wore it. B, you can't do that, Deontay, when at the same time there are clips of you talking about for every camp you wear a 45-pound vest, weighted vest, to build your strength and endurance. You can't do it. You can't talk about how you wear a weighted vest during camp to prepare for a fight and then fall back on the get up that you wore into the ring and use that as an excuse for the reason you lost. That's just my personal opinion on that. For anybody else who want to
That's a
touch
fact.
into all the controversial things that have been said in the days following, please do.
Yeah, I'll just go real quick. One of my pet peeves. So besides fighters missing weight and a bunch of other things, but one of my pet peeves is when a boxer after a fight, when he loses, says the other guy was the better man, no excuses, and then list off 10 excuses of why he lost. Like, it's the fight game. Everybody tends to lose at some point, and just cop up to it. Like, I just don't understand why. I mean, I know it's ego, and I know it's tough to lose, especially when you win almost all the time. And like that was alluded to earlier, when you have yes men, in your corner that telling you, everything you want to hear, then when you get I guess faced with that situation, you're almost lost. I mean, he was as lost in that interview as he was in the fight. But yeah, he has said many times that he's trained with that 45 pound vest or whatever. But I don't know. You just, again, you got caught by a punch that changed the fight. And to Gus's point earlier, I had mentioned it, that the punch wasn't illegal because Wilder turned his head and it just happened to, where it ended up landing, happened to land on that spot. So, it was a legal punch, even though it was kind of behind the ear. But, it's, I don't know. He just, I don't know why he doesn't, these guys don't want to cop up to it. But, I do think that they're going to fire Breland. And I think they'll get, a bunch of shit for that too, because again, when you're being hit and you're not throwing back and you've already been knocked down twice and the ref was going to step in it probably anyway, like it's going to be the same result. So why are you punishing this guy, looking for another excuse of why you lost? Take some ownership of your career. A lot of boxers say, hey, I can have a team, but when I'm in there against somebody, it's me versus that person, and I got to execute, the game plan and do it. Like they can't jump from outside the ring and hit the guy, from behind or from another side or whatever. It's me versus person. So, cop up to it.
The corner needs to be able to do the math on the scorecards. And Breland and Dees, it is part of their job to keep track. Maybe they were just as shell-shocked as Wilder, I suppose, that he was losing. But the truth is, he was also losing against Luis Ortiz. But he hadn't been knocked down, and he was still in complete command of all of his skills and faculties. In this case, he wasn't. And he'd been knocked down twice in 5 rounds. So let's do the math. There are 12 rounds on a 10-point must system. He's been knocked down in 2, which means he's lost 2 points beyond the points he was already down in 5. So he's down, let's do the math, everybody. He's down 7 points. 7 points after 5 rounds. He cannot win the fight by winning each of the next 6 rounds. And actually, let's get through 6 rounds. He can't win by winning each of the next 6 rounds. He's got to have minimum 2 knockdowns, or he's got to win the fight. Everyone in the entire MGM Grand Garden arena, no matter how drunk they were, would be able to look at him and say, the math doesn't add up. Look at him. It's not possible to execute. It's not going to happen. At that point, you stop the fight. Now, there is a little interesting point of boxing rules that everybody should remind themselves. Yes, the corner can throw in the towel, but technically the corner does not stop the fight. The corner asks the referee to stop the fight. Only the referee or the ringside physician, per the unified rules, can stop a fight. Now, I've never in a million years, ever seen a referee look at a towel thrown in the ring and say, I don't think so.
Yeah, it happened against Cotto versus what's that guy?
Oh, you're right. That is true. But that
at Yankee Stadium.
Sometimes they don't see it. That's different than ignoring it. But it is the referee's right to overrule the towel coming in. It's very, very rare. But technically, the referee stops the fight at the request of the corner. The corner does not stop the fight themselves. The referee has to go along with the plan. It's a very minor point, but it is a very important point about who's responsible for the fighter in the ring. Nevertheless, corners need to do the math. Corners need to be looking at the scorecard and making a good, honest assessment about whether their fighter has a real chance, a realistic chance, simply by the math of winning the fight. If they do not, boxing is a very dangerous sport, and none of these guys or women should be exposed to any more punishment than absolutely necessary. I hope years down the road, Wilder will thank Mark Breland for what he did. And Mark Breland, coming from the background of having been a professional boxer himself, he was absolutely the right guy to make that decision. Unfortunately, it does look like he's going to pay the price for it. But I'll tell you, Wilder, he is going to be laughed at the rest of his career over this issue with the costume. Buster, if you put that costume on into the dressing room for the first time and you think, damn, this thing's heavy, take it off. Take it off. Or just wear the headpiece. Just wear the mask and come in the ring. Nobody in the crowd was going to even notice. Believe me. They were so whipped up. They were so ready. It didn't really matter. What a big, big mistake. And I'd love to hear from the costume designer who thought that whole thing was a good idea in the first place.
Here's the thing, though. He's probably had 2 or 3 fittings before even the night of the fight. And yet he still went with it anyway? That's on him. That's on him. You can't turn around and
it's just an excuse, though.
now.
We all know that the costume has nothing to do with anything. It has nothing to do with the fight. He just grasped at that because his brain went to that, as an excuse. The costume is not even part of the discussion because it has nothing to do with what happened.
First of all, I want to give more acknowledgement to the chat here before you go on. Shout out to Olaf Armani. Shout out to Bo, Truth and Facts About Sports Talk. He said he wants to give you a comment to you, Gail. He said that, let me see here. What's up, people on the show? And Gail, your boyfriend, Bo, will be back on the show soon.
Well, hell yeah. About time.
L-Dog joined us, called Wilder the greatest excuse maker of all time. I don't know about that, but still, that excuse was piss poor. That was ridiculous. Comments from official as well. The killer 1911. Just wanted to give them acknowledgments to those folks as well. Official said, yeah, definitely a cherry pick gone wrong. If you haven't already, please hit that like button. Please hit the subscribe button. Excuse me. Go back to everybody here on the panel who wants to comment on all the stuff, for lack of a better word, that's happened in the aftermath.
Very quickly, Mike. I think L Dog's got a point, because apparently the helmet and batteries weigh too much. Now that sounds like Deontay Wilder's fiance's vibrator, doesn't it?
Oh gosh. Oh god.
Hey,
That was unnecessary, Gus.
hey.
Hey.
Come on, Gus. You can't get Mike demonetized.
I'm saying.
All right, but okay, yeah. Okay, let's just start this.
The opinion
Let's
you
just-
just heard is the opinion you just heard is of my guest is not necessarily reflective of the host of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. But go ahead, Terry.
Oh man, okay. Where do I begin? All right, where do I begin with this? Oh God. Okay. Okay, let's say we're all idiots here and we actually are gonna be quote unquote buying the costume excuse. It's not just the fitting. And I'm gonna be as bluntly as possible. Your ass should have been wearing that vest 2 or 3 times before, not just fitting, putting it on. And now you're trying to realize that, hey, I put on weight and I also put on a vest now walking that makes me walk around about 280 pounds. Maybe this dumbass suit ain't a fucking good idea. That's one thing. The other thing, when it comes to everything, is when it comes to I have to call it an excuse then when it comes to Wilder. Yes, Wilder has the best sleeper in the sport, arguably, still at this point. The problem is you can't really rely on that and say at the same time that your best technical performance was 5 years ago. When you first won the title, you should have been improved by that point. Now, yes, that falls in line also in the training staff. I have said for a while now that I felt that JD and Mark Brilliant have taken Wilder as far as they can take him. That maybe he's just got other voices that actually could implement other parts of his game plan.
Like who?
Like for defense, you might want to go to JODS. If you want to go into a little bit more of a variance punch, go to Robert Garcia. Go to people that are, if you want a little bit of mix of both, go to Mark Robles. You have options there that are viable. The problem is he doesn't. He doesn't. Because
two people I would think of. Shout out to the homie 2K, head of Three Kings Boxing. He mentioned Buddy McGirt and Teddy Atlas McGirt because
Jackson.
he could be. By who?
David Jackson.
That would
John
be
David
good
Jackson,
as well.
very good idea.
Yeah.
He mentioned McGirt 2K because he feels that he could do a reclamation project much in the same way that McGirt did with Kovalev and Teddy Atlas, because Teddy Atlas is no bullshitter and he wouldn't take Wilder's nonsense.
Yeah, but but this is the problem. This is the entire issue of the whole thing. A lot of it is your team. And unfortunately, Wilder has done the same mistake that a lot of fighters have made. And I have to disagree with L Dog that Wilder is the greatest excuse machine in the history of boxing. I'm sorry, that title belongs to Agent Broner for the time being. But he makes the same mistake as people like Broner and others have done, which is you surround yourself with people, they're just going to tell you what you like to hear. And if you surround yourself with people that you only listen to because they tell you, yes, you're the best, like go full on crocodile, you're going to fall off a little bit. Now, can he fix from it? Yeah. Is Mark Brilliant going to be the sacrificial lamb for this? Unfortunately, more than likely. But at the same time, at the end of the day, as much as you can try to blame Mark Brilliant, as much as you can try to blame the damn suit, at the end of the day, it's you who are taking the punch. It's you who should have recognized that maybe I'm not on the steady legs as much as I can. It's you that ultimately has their face on the canvas. So Wilder can make all the excuses that he wants, but in the day, the onus is on him. He has to own it. He has to, like Gail mentioned, lick his wounds, rebuild himself back up. Now, yeah, this is gonna probably require some fights that are gonna try to make him look good, and then build yourself back up. Because yeah, you're not gonna. Even though we all know that's not what's gonna happen, we all know, unfortunately, he exercised a rematch clause, and unfortunately, due to the contract, apparently it's gonna happen this summer.
Sorry, I was on mute. You mentioned uh, I'm going to piggyback on your last point. The future here. Should Wilder has said he's going to take a rematch clause. He has a 30-day window. Okay, he does that, but should that rematch be immediate? Immediate? I personally don't think so. Um, if he has an about face and decides not
You
to,
don't personally think so because he shouldn't, or because he shouldn't have the right to?
he has the right to, but he got beat up severely. You just don't run it back like that so soon. He has to deconstruct and reconstruct himself physically, mentally slash spiritually, and in terms of his approach, strategy, and otherwise, right? And that needs time. And that, in my opinion, needs some fights for him to build himself back up. So if he decides to have an about face and not want to fight this guy immediately, um, Eddie Hearn has already been on Twitter talking about a prospect of a fight between Fury and Joshua. For anybody who wants to respond, the likelihood of that, of a Fury Joshua bout later on this year, A, and B, should we even see a third fight between Fury and Wilder apparently so soon?
I am in the camp of don't need to see it. As an observer, as a fan, I don't need to see it. I understand why Wilder and his team may feel they need it, they want it. That's fine. I definitely have a difference of opinion where that's concerned. The fight that I think most people in the boxing world now want to see is Fury and Joshua. But if it's going to take us getting past Wilder one more time to get there, so be it. I think there's a lot of wisdom to letting everything cool off, die down. I mean, this was a hell of a big, big fight operation. Fans only have so much money. Fans are only going to be willing to travel so far. You know, Hearn has already got lights in his eyes thinking about Middle Eastern money for something like this, which I think would be a mistake. There is no reason not to keep this a prospective Fury Joshua fight domestic to the United Kingdom. There's plenty of money to go around. It doesn't need to be stepped on whatsoever. But I'm really not terribly interested in seeing Fury and Wilder again. You know, let the two guys who badly need a win go after each other. Put Wilder and Ruiz together. Let's see what happens. But I do think Wilder really needs a step-up fight as well. It's very possible that Wilder could end up being paid step-aside money, as could Kubrat Pulev if they really got an offer they couldn't refuse for a Fury Joshua fight. So I think until we see it signed and announced, there's nothing sure about where this is all going to go.
I think, from my standpoint, Wilder, he was undefeated. He was a champion. I think this was going to be his 11th defense. I think, if it's in the contract that he can exercise a rematch, then he's earned that, in my opinion. I'm not saying that, that I want to see it. But as far as what he's, I guess, done with his reign, in a way, even though he got beat down, but again, it was that one punch in the third round that I think really changed the fight. I think in a weird way, he's kind of earned the right to a rematch because they built it into the contract to begin with. So there must have been some type of point on their side to basically say, hey, well, in case we lose, or in case this goes to decision and we lose, I don't think they thought they were going to get knocked out, but in case they lose, then we want that third fight. We want that guarantee and we want that right. So, technically it's his to exercise, and there's no reason why he wouldn't, because, even though he got beat, because his belief in himself and the way his career has gone, he probably never imagined himself he was going to lose. And so he wants to get that back. That's going to be that demon that chases him until he writes that, what, it's considered wrong in his mind. So, and again, it's the heavyweights, anything can happen. He could still land that right hand. They can still, I don't think that they'll be able to change, his team can change his style around or making any adjustments. My main adjustment would be to him is that work on developing a left hand, because everybody's so scared of your right hand. So while they're focused on that, hit him with the left hand, and use your jab, like Daniel alluded to earlier. When he fought Stavern the first time, he had a decent jab, it's probably, the best punch as far as fundamentals that he has. I mean, his right hand is a wild haymaker, and I think Gus even said it before. He lands at some of the times on the wrist, and it's just all over the place. But work on that jab and that left hand, and that Fury's going to come forward and have a plan for that.
I see Gail's boyfriend, Bo, aka Truth and Facts about sports talk, as well as the
Wait, she's cheating with Bo with Chavez? I thought Chavez Jr. was the boyfriend.
No.
Beat his ass. I beat his ass and took his girl.
Bo, defend my honor. Defend my honor.
yeah. First of all, I would like to add, while all y'all talking to my woman without me being here, there's some disrespectful shit. All right? Y'all got her on here and y'all ain't talking to me. This is disrespectful. All right?
I'm having to defend myself.
Yeah. Listen, man. Oh, I don't even know where to start. My hashtag says it all. No excuses, period. Here is the bottom line reality. Even if you want to give Deontay Wilder praise, because he was willing to go out on his shield. He wasn't looking for a way out. You can't give it to him. Why? I've heard all the excuses in boxing. I've heard from Emanuel Stewart claiming a massage made a guy weak. I think Eric Morales in his socks, David Hay in his toe, his shoulder. Mike Tyson, I broke my back. I've heard all of them. Never in my life have I ever thought a person, and mind you, Deontay himself said he tried that outfit on the day before. So that outfit didn't just gain weight over fucking night. You tried that outfit on the day before. You put it on, walk into the ring, and the outfit made you weak? No, let me help you out. What made you weak was the ass whooping you was receiving from Tyson Fury. That's what, bottom line, that's what did it. And what I don't like about fighters and the excuses is, instead of us talking about how great of a fight it was, because it was just that. That's exactly what it was. Tyson Fury came out. He said he was going to do what he was going to do. He did it. Wilder was willing to go out on his shield and be beaten up. That had the makings to be a great fight. We could have left it. It was a great fight. This dude won. Blah, skipping. Instead, we're talking about something as stupid as a goddamn outfit. That's what we're wasting our time on all week. And it takes away from not just the fight, it takes away from how big that event was and how much that shit meant for boxing. That's what pisses me off more than anything. is instead of us talking about how this rejuvenated boxing, how it rejuvenates the heavyweight division, we're talking about something stupid. And boxing, Tyson Fury, everybody involved in that, the writers, those of us that cover it, we deserve better than that. And that's what makes this bad. So at the end of the day, for me, I don't want to hear it, because whether it's the suit, you have to do that. You're mad at Mark Breland, and I get it. That's just the competitive nature in you. But Mark Breland should not be fired because simply he was looking out for you. I remember Joe Frazier's trainer said when he was fighting Muhammad Ali, Thread in Manila, he said, I pictured this man not being able to pick up his grandkids, so I stopped that fight. I remember I saw Diego Corrales charge his dad, okay, charge his father. But at the end, he didn't fire him. He understood. So it's a bad look all around. And let me just say this, because Mike, you said you ain't gonna say nothing. And you know what, man? That's good of you, you know. But I'm gonna say something. Speaking as a black man who is well up there in age, probably the second oldest person on the show, who have lived, who have overcome things, who have raised a family, I can sit and tell you this. The only way I have gotten better is to accept my fucking criticism from people who telling me that. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing, hoping that you get a different result. I've accepted my criticism. That's how I've gotten better. Okay? If my children came to me about something that I did they didn't like, I didn't be like, oh, get out of here, y'all kids. I said, no, come talk to your father. What's wrong? Okay? Going through life, people I meet who opinions I value, if they told me that, I'm sorry, all right, cool. You know, at the very least, you have to listen to people criticizing you, because you're not going to get better thinking your way worked when you just got your ass whooped. So anybody upset, and speaking as a black man, because I'm speaking out, trying to help another black man get past what he can't get past because he's refusing to see it, don't get mad at me. Because the purpose of us to help him, if any fighter, it's okay to like a fighter, but the only best way you help a fighter is you have to be honest with him. And the way it starts is you got to be honest with yourself. The man, we always knew what his deficiencies was. We always knew what the man needed to do. He didn't do that. He went in there with the superior fighter, with the ring IQ and the technical ability to employ a game plan. If Deontay Wilder wants to get that belt back, he has to accept, I didn't have it out there. I gotta do more. Yes, I looked at bad. That's the only way you're gonna move on. And Bob Arum is even trying to throw him a bone, because Bob is like, Wilder could take a tune-up and he'll still have his rematch. And Bob is saying we don't even have to do it in July. I would be willing to wait to September, October, so we can do it in the Raiders Stadium. So at the end of the day, the fact that we're talking about this is stupid. You had a lot of other good fights on the card, and this we're wasting our time with. This is the thing about boxing sometimes that can get us to a point to where anybody that we want to welcome to the sport, it's hard to do it because of dumb shit like this.
Indeed, I think we're going into discussion about this fight specifically on that note.
Can I just say one thing very quickly, Mike?
Yeah, go ahead.
We all remember, a while ago, if Jeff Lacey's corner had intervened when they should have against his bout in the United Kingdom with Joe Calzaghe, then I'm sure that could have sustained his career. But sadly, they didn't, and we saw what transpired after the fight. He was finished.
Right. Good example to point to why Breland was in the right to suggest that the fight could stop. Do any of you guys want to talk about Charles Martin and his win over Washington, or should we just skip that and go to the Navarrete fight?
My dude's coming back, and he's looking for Joshua. We're seeing the real Charles Martin now, Mike. Not the guy who took a dive against Joshua, and that's what it was. I don't care what anybody says. We're seeing, Prince Charles, and he's even calling out Wilder now. He thinks he can chin check him. So I'm looking for redemption. I want Charles Martin against Joshua, and I want Charles Martin to decapitate him.
All I got to say is, oh.
Oh my
For
God.
those who do not know what Bo is referring to, before the fight, there was a clip of Mr. Martin basically saying that, talking about how he's going to build himself up towards the fight, and it's going to culminate in him bringing out the Black Tarzan. At least for this fight, he was a man of his word, because I clown him for that, and I'm gonna continue to clown him for that. But it was a fairly impressive stoppage. He showed real power in this fight, particularly in the left-handed that finish matters. But yeah, that that Black Tarzan video, that's gonna stay hilarious, and I'm gonna troll him about it. I don't give a damn. Anybody else want to comment about that fight quickly?
For me, I just never had a lot of stock in Washington, so this is not to me like a fantastic, spectacular win. Washington to me has always been kind of garbage. He's I think ex-football or wannabe football player that transitioned to boxing. He's a big guy, but he doesn't fight like that. He fights very reserved and doesn't use any of his attributes. But you know. And to disagree with Gus, which I hate to do, but I don't think that the Martin Joshua was a setup. He landed a nice punch and put him down.
Let's move on.
No, Jacob. Any man who's smiling before he hits the ground, that is not a debilitating punch. Somebody who's gone from like 100,000 to what 5.5 million. You only got to look at Tim Witherspoon in his rematch against James Bone Crusher Smith. That's all I'll say.
Oh man, I am very, very surprised that Gus is trying to encroach upon the territory of Urinating Tree as one of the master trolls of YouTube. But yeah, let's get on to the actual fight.
A couple of comments here from the YouTube chat before you go there, Daniel. Official says that what I was seeing was Wilder was really getting busted up by a stiff jab from long range and getting mauled at close range. He says there's a real possibility of him, meaning Wilder, suffering career-altering damage versus Fury. Joe, 56984. He says that Steve Kim reported that Jack Dees and Breland got involved in a shoving match in the dressing room after the fight. He also suggested that maybe I think it was him that maybe Wilder should fight Hrgovic as a comeback fight as well. So I just wanted to get those points out. Buddy Asa says. He says, "Come on now, Washington is awful." He says, "Martin." Official says, Martin is about to. You know what? I'm not going to go there. Martin is about to circumcise the whole division, sir.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Daniel.
Okay. Navarrete came in and did what Navarrete does best. Hit with efficiency, hit with activity, and hit with power. Like, he's pretty much made sure that anybody at 122, Roman, Vargas, they have to go to him. Like, you cannot deny this anymore. You can't deny this anymore. I know Ray Vargas ran to Al Heyman, and we know Roman is still recovering a little bit from his stuff.
Well, he just lost to MJ, so.
Yeah, I know, but I know that part. But they have to see this. They have to see Navarrete. Like, there's no way to avoid it now. Not when he fought that well in that platform, where now more than enough casuals know who Navarrete is.
Well, Jay, I would agree with you except for one thing. Emanuel Navarrete is talking about moving up in weight, which would be unfortunate because, like you said, I want to see him fight Ray Vargas. I want to see him fight the guy that beat Daniel Roman. I would like to see him even fight Roman. But I said this when I saw what he did to Isaac Dogbe. I said, this is a fighter that his ring IQ finally grew into his skill set, and he is tough to beat. It's like he's clicking on all cylinders, and a fighter like that that's clicking on all cylinders, that has that everything.
I would say his ring IQ has matched with is starting to match his power.
Yeah, that too, Mike. But he's clicking on all cylinders. So for me, I would love for him to stay there. But if he goes up in weight, that means he's going to 126. And it also means there's a WBO rule that says one thing and one thing only. You get first crack at that champ. Shakur Stevenson and Emanuel Navarrete. Oh my God. That would be all. I would pay to watch that fight. Because
do you think Ward will put him in there, would put Stevenson in there with Navarrete so soon?
I think he would let that build, because there was a missed opportunity with Oscar Valdez. Oscar Valdez went up to 130. He didn't fight Shakur. So I think that's a fight that he would kind of try to do it, kind of like Teofimo Lopez and Lomachenko. Maybe he would try to steer him towards another belt to make some of it. But that is definitely something that I would love to see, because I think Shakur Stevenson's ring IQ, just like with his skill set, his power is catching up. That would be an excellent fight to see. But I'm with Daniel. I would love to see these guys fight him at 122. But if he's struggling to make weight, I don't want him to fight them, because they'll wind up beating him simply because he was weakened. And I don't want to see that in Emanuel Navarrete. Not a guy like this that's been doing what he's been doing.
You was want to add a quick word about I think Gus was one. You was want to add a quick word about Navarrete, Gus.
Yeah, just briefly, Mike. You know, I didn't see the fight as definitively as I want, because I was immersed in a sort of 12-hour live stream. But from the brief sort of intermission which I saw of him, he looked horrible, Mike.
I thought he looked drained. Personally, I thought he looked weight drained.
I don't know what on earth Daniel was talking about. He looked horrible, certainly for the beginning 6 rounds. Santisima, who has been based exclusively in the Philippines with a very superficial sort of resume, was able to take his punches and land significant. It was expected to be a very easy showcase, but it was far from that. Navarrete was horrible. His balance was horrible as well in the fight, overextending with his punches. His punches didn't seem to have any authority, certainly for the early part of the fight. It's unfortunate, Mike, because he is a tremendous fighter. I have respect for him, and everything I've seen from him from Mexico, with Zanfer, and now in the United States, and his activity has been very impressive as well. But he's fought nothing but bum after bum after bum, Mike, on the top rank since surpassing, Isaac Dogbe, and Bob obviously capitalizing on his potentially high ceiling. So the fights at 122 pounds are not advantageous for him, Mike. He's clearly struggling. He's obviously cutting at least probably 30, maybe even more pounds to make the weight. For that sort of frame, he needs to get to not even 126, Mike. I think he may need to go to 130.
I agree with you in terms of the way he looked. He beat a guy he should have beat, but I didn't think he was that impressive. He fought in spurts, in short outbursts, and he wasn't consistent at all throughout the fight. He just knew he was the bigger, stronger guy. He basically just used that to eventually wear down the Filipino opponent and eventually overwhelm him. L Dog says in the chat that Shakur Stevenson will move up in weight. Stevenson has said he's moving up to 130 soon. I think there are opportunities there at 126. L Dog, he can still make 26 reasonably comfortably. Excuse me, reasonably without too much difficulty. I'll put it that way. Yeah, with comfort. And I think that because there are opportunities there, I think his team is going to keep him there at 126 for the foreseeable future. And given that, particularly for a possible unification bout with Warrington, hopefully later on this year, and should he win that, Yeah, I can see them, Aaron, putting him in there against Navarrete.
Isn't
Say late.
Stevenson fighting Mariaga next?
He's fighting Mariaga in March, but should he win, um, all roads lead to a possible fight against Warrington later on this year. Um, I know Warrington recently moved over to DAZN, but that fight is still open. You was going to say something, Daniel? Finish the conversation off.
No, yeah, that I do agree that I'll probably see Navarrete. As much as I want to see him 122, I do agree he probably is better suited for jumping up to featherweight or 130. Now, you guys pointed out Shakur. You did point out Warrington. But you know what? There's a certain fighter who fights at featherweight who decides to just fight once a year because he feels there's no competition. Maybe some competition is going to show up to him pretty soon, and maybe he can get off this fight once a year bullshit that he's on. Yeah, I'm talking to you,
The key
Gary
word,
Russell.
Daniel. The key word, Daniel. Maybe. That's the key word for that. Maybe.
There's hope though, because he didn't he just fight earlier this year, so there's still another 10 months to
Yeah, indeed. Let's
for him
move
to
on
sneak
to
a fight.
Let's move on to some news here because the show is running rather lengthy. Um, Surprising development in Japan, and I want to get Gail into this because it's been a long time since we heard from her. Japanese Boxing Commission. I wrote about this for Three Kings Boxing. It is up there, or is up there right now on threekingsboxing.com. The JBC, the Japanese Boxing Commission, has announced that it's going to suspend boxing activity for a month starting March 1st due to the coronavirus outbreak. This is on top of Jose Ramirez having his bout canceled against Victor Postal. The fight that was going to happen earlier. This was originally set to happen earlier this month in China. It was delayed, rescheduled, and relocated. The fight is going to happen in May now in Fresno. Talk about the impact and the ramifications of this virus on the boxing landscape.
Well, never mind the boxing landscape. The first biggest concern of all sporting officials in Japan is the effect on the 2020 Tokyo Olympic Games, which
announcement that came to. I read an announcement before the show, just before the show, Gail. As of right now, the Olympics in Tokyo is still a go.
You know, it's February. Everybody knows the games are in jeopardy. The cutoff for a decision is likely to be in late May. So this is preventative triage right now. Soccer games, soccer tournaments have been canceled. Multiple other sports have canceled tournaments, championships. This is precautionary. It's smart. It's necessary. They're willing to take a little pain now, lose events, smaller events now, qualifiers now, to do whatever it takes to hopefully preserve that one event that comes every 4 years. The Olympic Games have only been canceled twice in their history, and it was due to world wars. So they're going to do whatever it takes. We're not losing any terribly critical fights on the calendar. It's a shame. It's a shame for the Japanese boxing fans and boxing public. But the truth is, in countries that are being significantly impacted, people are not going to public events. So the harm done is not significant at this point. But don't be surprised if we start seeing this happen more. And as these outbreaks creep into other areas, we see Italy be hit. Right now, the countries that are most concerned are obviously China, Japan, and sort of secondarily South Korea, but now Italy and the United States. We're going to have to all keep our eyes on this and see what other events have been canceled or are in danger of being canceled. If I'm a fan traveling to any sporting event, I would not get anything non-refundable as far as my travel arrangements at this point.
I'll go to you, Gus, and you can follow up, Bo. Not just the JBC, but also the Japanese Professional Boxing Association, the JPBA, in concert decided to cancel boxing events starting on the 1st. For now, it's a month, but if the situation arises, gets any worse, they will extend the suspension. Talk about how that affects boxing in Asia and in Japan, not just boxing events there, but certain fighters, superstar fighters, in our opinions, like a Tanaka, or how even if you don't want to be alarmist and think the worst here, and what if this suspension is extended into April and whatnot? How could this possibly affect, say, a one Naoya Inoue, who's set to fight Casimiro here in the States in April? Talk about the potential worldwide ramifications of all of this.
Mike. Look, I'll leave it brief because it's pretty self-explanatory. It's potentially catastrophic worldwide. So I'll defer to my esteemed colleagues in the media to obviously talk about the worldwide ramifications. I'll just take a bit of a geopolitical and conspiratorial angle very, very briefly. And all I will say there is that all those who sincerely believe that the coronavirus emerged in China due to a peasant consuming bat soup, becoming ill, and then subsequently passing it on, and then we know the domino effect thereafter. One has to be just neolithically incompetent to believe the reasons that have been disseminated by the World Health Organization. All I will say is that if one really looks at the massive currency depreciation worldwide and simultaneously the record high price of gold, then they will understand why the pathogen was created and deployed in China. And that's all
I'll go. I'll leave that out there and let the folks ponder and sit on that. And I'll go to you, Bo. Gus said he will leave a lot of this up to the media. Gail, you're in boxing media. Bo, you're in boxing media as well. The General of Three Kings. You also attend fights. You cover fighters like myself all over the world. Your reaction to this news?
It was a big blow. It was a big blow for Japanese boxing because it was being put on the map. It was also being looked at as a different revenue stream outside of the normal revenue stream. Right now, what they're saying is as of March 1st, only supposed to last for March, but I'm with Gail. This is a preemptive strike, so to speak, before you actually lay down the hammer. Gus had some very good political points, and there's some probably more political points you can actually make about this. But it's a heavy blow to the Japanese boxing market because it was really being put on the map. You had a lot of fighters coming out of there, definitely representing. They was getting recognition, even from a news media standpoint. It was getting recognition there. So it's a very, very, very unfortunate thing. But I understand the need to take precaution. But like at the end of the day, they're trying to do what they can to salvage the Olympics. And unfortunately, when you're focusing on one thing, there's a lot of other things that can happen. I'm not going to go into deep detail, but what I don't want to see is the focus be on the Olympics and the health and the concerns and the safeties of other people who are there now are ignored.
Yeah, that is the ultimate thing. At the end of the day, the overall health and safety of not just boxers in Japan, but the overall country, not just boxers from China or from Asia. Everyone in Asia and everyone who's been affected by this, including folks in Europe, including folks here in the United States, because had a bit of an outbreak here, and but this could become a pandemic. We don't know. Let's just hope that things get, that this virus is controlled and contained, even as there are legitimate concerns that need to be raised, in spite of what our officials say, emanating from our White House, including the Department of Health and Human Services, who sounded completely clueless during congressional testimony yesterday. That's just my side note, because he just sounded stuck on stupid. Let's move on. Kovalev, the saga bless you. The saga of Kovalev post his fight with Canelo. Anybody who wants to respond on this, please do. He was arrested for DWI. Is this kind of the sign of a fall from grace, a tailspin downward for one Sergey Kovalev? Anybody who wants to respond, please do.
He was already falling. This is just a long line of issues.
Yeah, this is a problem that's been affecting him even before the Canelo fight. This is something that it actually predates, I think, the Ward fights a bit. So
sure,
this is not unfortunate. Sure. Yeah. So unfortunately, this is not surprising in the least, and there's not a lot that you can do to fix it other than he has to check himself in. He has to get better. Now, obviously, there's not much you can do in the ring right now. Like, I know he at one point said that recently that he was going up to cruiserweight, which is a fool's errand at this point. But yeah, he there's not much you can say. Like, he has to get the help that he needs, and yet not only he has to get the help, he has to accept the help.
Yeah, speaking as somebody who knows Sergey, he's got a lot of emotional issues and he's got a lot of demons, and he is not the only one in boxing who's ever faced those things down. So, equally over the weekend at the Wilder Fury fight, in the media room, we had an incident with young Mr. Adrian Broner, who arrived on the property where he has apparently been banned and was hauled off by security and arrested. He was also inebriated. He had another boxer with him who was inebriated at the time.
Oh, dear.
Didn't make the media, which I won't repeat that name. That's not fair.
This mother. Go ahead.
Yeah. Alcohol is a demon, folks, if you let it control you. And it's easy to happen when you live a very public lifestyle involving a lot of socializing, parties, good times, money. Alcohol is a frequent partner in all of these things, and not everybody can handle it. It's really a shame to see it get a hold of these guys, and I wish them the best in dealing with their problems, but deal with them they must.
Indeed. Gus, Bo, any commentary on this, or do you want to move on to talk about the fights this weekend?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, too often we hear about these things in our sport, the fall from grace, and it's sad. That's all I can say. It's sad. You hear this in sports. and in our sport. And it is really, really sad to hear that. Whether you like a fighter, you don't like a fighter, fighters go through things in this sport, especially when they're no longer on top. They find other means to satisfy that hunger or that thirst that they have of still hearing the names being chanted. It's hard for athletes, period, have a hard time dealing with it. So, I'm with Gail. Hope he gets the treatment that he needs and gets better, but it's not looking good for him.
The fragility of athletes in general, particularly at this high level, um, is an issue. Um, you never know what can tick a fighter off to go from negative to positive and positive to negative, and even as to your point, Bo. Ultimately, your point is the most valid point. This is a sad situation. Um, Official says in the chat that true, Daniel. These problems were visible even before the Ward fight, and yeah, ultimately at the end of the day, you don't want to see these kind of things from any athlete, even from Broner. Even as I am frustrated by him, you hope you human level, uh, you want the best for any and everybody, and I hope whether it's Broner, whether it's Kovalev, that both individuals get the seek help and get help because you want the best for both. At the end of the day, I want to go to preview some fights this weekend. Want to focus on the DAZN card. Going to go a different route here than what I had in the chat. I'm going to you, Gus, on this first fight. Um, we both are fans of the little guys. Intriguing matchup in the super flyweight or junior bantamweight division, however you want to call it, as Cal Yafai defending his belt against former great Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez. I think this is the most intriguing bout of the weekend, even more so than the main event. For me, Gus, and then I'll include everybody in the discussion about this fight specific. For me, this fight depends on the state of Roman. For many folks, even astute observers of the lower weight divisions, the last thing a lot of people remember from Roman, from Chocolatito, is him getting splattered all over the floor by Srisakat. He has fought in September 2017. He has fought twice since, but against marginal at best opposition. You just don't know where he is, what his current state is. Your thoughts on this fight, because there's a lot of questions in the air from my part. If Roman is Roman is anywhere close to the fighter that we saw pre-Srisakat, he'll not only beat Yafai, he'll stop him. Slippage that we saw, the fall off, particularly from an emotional perspective that we saw in the second Srisakat fight, Yafai may be able to pull this off.
It's one of the most intriguing fights in the last couple of years, specifically for those reasons, Mike. Now, Roman Gonzalez, in my opinion, is an all-time great fighter, and he's the fighter of the decade as well. And now he has the opportunity of becoming, a 3-decade champion as well. So, but it's a fighter who's had a very long career professionally, has definitely aged, has suffered a great deal of personal issues which have affected his boxing ability. But it's a case that a fighter who had reached his mental and physical threshold when that defeat occurred when it did. But if you analyze the early part of his career, Mike, he was a highly dominant champion and he didn't have very many difficult fights. The Francisco Rosas was one difficult fight he had, but he rematched him and destroyed him. But apart from that, there wasn't many others The Estrada fight was one of the best fights I've ever seen, and it is one of the most underrated boxing fights that people simply do not pay close enough attention to, for just the sheer high level of skill involved by both of the combatants who were in their prime. And for a Gonzalez to beat a 22-year-old Estrada the way he did, it just emphasizes the greatness in him. Now, if we break down this fight, Mike, Khalid Yafai, the WBA champion from the United Kingdom, former Olympian, a fighter who has shrunk himself down from bantamweight to super flyweight, is a technical boxer, Mike, but he's a fighter who I feel has regressed, Mike. Early on in his career, he was a fantastic body puncher, and we see those tactics employed very sparsely. He's a fighter who may be a little bit better on the back foot than Gonzalez, but he's a fighter who can be subjugated against pressure fighters because he tends to operate behind a very high guard, and he doesn't counter punch off the guard. Now, he's up against a fighter in Gonzalez who I feel is the heavier puncher, has the faster hands, is a significantly better combination puncher, is a significantly better body puncher as well. So, and Gonzalez is one of the best fighters I've seen in recent times, the ability to cut off the ring as well. So, all of those attributes are very much the Achilles heel for the style that Khalid Yafai has. He's not going to be able to fight Gonzalez on the front foot, nor is he going to be able to fight him with limited punch output, because Gonzalez will be on an avalanche. I think he'll back him up, and I think if you can preoccupy Yafai behind the high guard, Gonzalez can then start teeing off to the body, and Yafai will be in trouble, Mike. That will restrict the movements of Yafai, and it would enable Gonzalez, I think, maybe to get a stoppage in the end. But that is if Yafai becomes a little bit negative and he tends to fight, just trying to pot shot him and count and landing sort of, Yafai has one good combination, Mike. It's a jab, straight, right hand, left hook, that free punch combination. That's been his signature combination throughout. But the Israeli Gonzalez fight, where he was very, very fortunate to keep hold of his belts, said to me that although he didn't take a debilitating punishment, but it exposed his deficiencies up against a pressure fighter. And Gonzalez, I still feel, Mike, has one or two big performances in him. And if Gonzalez will replicate what Israel Gonzalez did, but with his A-level skills, I think Gonzalez has a very, very good opportunity of beating, Yafai, Mike. Khalid has not sharpened his ability fighting A-level opponents. I'm not sure what Eddie Hearn has been doing in terms of managing his career. So with Gonzalez is a little bit of a deterioration, reaching those thresholds in these mental and physical attributes, coupled with being out of the ring a little while. It becomes a little bit of a closer fight, but I still think Gonzalez has enough in him, Mike. I think he has enough boxing ability in him and a little bit of hunger and desire. And, I think he can pull it off, Mike. And I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a late stoppage in the fight as well.
Read some comments here talking about the fight between Yafai and Roman. Eldar says he wants Roman Gonzalez to win. Official says can't wait to see Chocolatito. He wasn't looking that bad to me recently. He says he thinks that he can beat Yafai and he's picking him to do so. Although the state of his recently injured knee is unknown, and that's another aspect of the fight. Part of his layoff was due to knee injury, I believe knee surgery. Ultimately, he had to take some time to get back on the mend from that. So again, it's just ultimately, it's just I want to see how he looks. I want to see the early rounds. He should be hungry to get back on top, but I just want to see his physical form. I'll go to you, Bo, and you, Daniel. Your thoughts on this fight?
I like this fight. This Yafai has been saying he he needs to step up, and it's kind of funny to hear a champion say something like that. But Yafai has been saying he needs to get in there with some of the upper echelon or the top of guys. He said he laid out a game plan of who he wants to fight, and it's a very good fight because this is going to prove if Yafai the real, like, is he really the real deal? And I know we're saying that about a guy who's a champion, and I know some people might get mad at it, but I mean, let's face it, Yafai, the people who he's been fighting, there've been questions about it. So he's gonna fight a Roman Gonzalez. Now, is it gonna be the Roman Gonzalez we remember that was blasting through the divisions before Rumberside got to him? If it's gonna be that Rumberside, Yafai might find himself on the losing end of the fight here. So I like it. It's intriguing because either Yafai is going to prove to us that he is who a lot of people feel he should be and can start making big fights and move on, or it's going to be a proven thing for Rumberside, which is I'm really back and proving to everybody he's really back. That it has the makings of a great fight.
Your thoughts, Daniel?
I tend to view Yafai in the same light as I view Lee Selby. But there's a talent there, but there's an inherent weakness. But everything depends upon where Chocolatito is. If Chocolatito is even, to me, half of what he was before he fought Rumberside, he's going to be able to beat Yafai pretty easily, in my eyes. But that's all depends upon him. I give credit to Yafai. He's now stepping up and fighting, even if you consider it at this point that a little bit past his prime, but it's still an elite fighter, still an elite competition. And at the end of the day, we have to see what it proves, because the onus is more on Yafai than anything else.
On balance, Chocolatito is the more skillful fighter. On balance, he's the more active fighter. And on balance, not on balance, but to Gus's earlier point, I think that Yafai, he's starting to show signs of a guy who's beginning to wear and tear from the effects of coming down in weight. He began his career at 122, 118 range, dropped down to win the title. The snap, the sharpness that I saw when he won the title, I do not see it anymore. And if everything is equal, I think Roman wins. And if he displays the form that we saw pre-Srisakat, he doesn't just win; he stops him mid to late rounds. I want to thank Jacob. Want to thank Gail and Jacob. They both had to dip out early for joining us throughout most of this show. If you want to talk boxing with Gail, if you want to talk small business, if you want to talk media, you can check her out. You can check her out on Twitter at PR Pro San Diego. Again, PR Pro San Diego on Twitter. You can also check out her writings about boxing over on Communities Digital News at COMMDIGI News.com. If you want to talk boxing or movies with Jacob, you can check out you can check him out on Twitter at JRATM23. You can also check out his boxing writings. He did an excellent article on Canelo to close out 2019. You can check out his stuff on excuse me, Jab Hook Boxing, JABHOOK .com, jabhookboxing.com. Let's move on to some other fights here. For anybody who wants to talk about Julio Cesar Martinez, who really came on the scene in 2019, his no contest fight against Charlie Edwards, which he was en route to winning, in my opinion. He followed that up with winning the vacant WBC flyweight title, making his first title defense against a Welshman by the name of Jay Harris. I'll go back to Gus again because I haven't seen much of Harris on video, just a couple of highlights from a couple of fights. But you was telling me last week that Harris, he's a fighter that could be better than a lot of the odds makers make him out to be. Your thoughts?
This is a terrific fight, Mike. Been really looking forward to not only seeing Julio Cesar Martinez, who I felt was the fighter of the year last year. 3 magnificent performances, 3 stoppages on different jurisdictions, one in Mexico, one in the UK, and then in the United States. It's just a pity the Charlie Edwards fight. He got a little bit impetuous, but he was beating the shit out of him, so it was inevitable it was going to be a knockout. But that's how you would win a world title, on somebody's backyard, and just a crushing defeat for Edwards. But he had to vacate the title. There was no way he was going to run it back with Martinez. Wise decision to preserve his not only his career but his life. Now, Jay Harris, Mike, from Wales, is an excellent little boxer. He's got a little bit of everything, Mike. He's versatile, a little bit more multi-dimensional as well. Very good in using upper body movement and his legs to evade punches, Mike. He has a very, very athletically gifted type of fighter as well. But
in front of videos I've seen of him, he seems to have a very good left hook.
Yeah. He's actually very... What it is, Mike, is he can fight in 2 styles, and he can do it in a round. He can go laterally on the back foot, defensively, tiring out the opponent, and then turning it on later on. And I think against Martinez, Mike, he's going to have to be aggressive. Now, Martinez is, one defeat was up against a fighter who really put balls to the walls and laid it upon him. And I feel that's what you've got to do. And I think Christopher Rosales, we saw early on in the fight, Mike, when he was trading and engaging with Martinez, had hurt Martinez badly, and his legs, we all remember his legs dipped. He could have been knocked down as well. So I think you're going to have to be aggressive, because fighters who have tried to run away from Martinez, he's been able to, cut off the ring, trap him. He's not always the best at cutting off the ring, but one thing Martinez has, Mike, is his ability to vary his lead attacks is fantastic. There is nothing predictable about him, and that's what makes him a very difficult proposition for any fighter. There is no repetitive nature in which opposition fighters can learn his tendencies, his behavior, and then develop counter-punching abilities. He will start off with, he can vary his combinations and his lead attacks. Very destructive fighter, a real, amazing fighter, like in terms of skill. So
he a mean little son of a bitch too.
Yeah,
in there.
yeah, but yeah, the Reynosos are really building up a hell of a camp of just aggressive power punches. So, Jay is not that well seasoned in terms of the world level, Mike. So it's going to be a baptism of fire, but he's a fighter who has a wonderful opportunity, and he knows that the experience as well can be beneficial to his career. So he's not afraid of losing the O or whatever else. Why not, Mike? He's young, he's confident, he's got ability, he's got, boxing shocks are inevitably, it's not beyond the realm of possibility that he cannot defeat a Martinez. You never know, but he definitely has the boxing ability, Mike. I think he can frustrate him. I think he can hurt Martinez as well. And I think Harris has the hand speed as well to cause him trouble as well. So a very, very difficult task. But I'm hoping for J Mike. He's from Wales. It sounds like a really good kid. A friend of ours, Mark from Unrivaled, got him on a call, and he had great humility and talking to him for a long time as well. So seems a really, really nice kid as well, Mark. So good luck to Jay. That's all I'll say.
Quick word on this fight, Bo and Daniel.
I've not seen much of unfortunately, Martinez's opponent, so I'm gonna take Gus at his word when it comes to this.
Okay, let's move on to the main event of this card, the return of Mikey Garcia. Well, not the return of Mikey Garcia, but he returns to the ring. This fight, by the way, this card, excuse me for not mentioning this, this card is taking place on the 29th in Frisco, Texas. I'll go to you, Bo, to get the conversation started. Mikey Garcia fighting Jessie Vargas in the main event. Garcia coming off of the loss to Spence, getting back in the ring against the Vargas. For me, I know that Mikey Garcia is the smaller fighter, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't like the way that Jessie Vargas looked in his last bout. I thought he struggled, to say the least. I just think that Mikey, the skill level, the difference in skill level between these two, the fact that he's more consistent, he's the better overall boxer. I just think that Jessie Vargas is just the level below this dude. I don't care if Mikey Garcia is the naturally smaller guy. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Mike, you wouldn't be too far off with that. If Mikey Garcia, the only thing I can think of is that I know Mikey Garcia he said that getting in with Earl Spence, maybe it was too early for him to do that. Maybe they should have got used to the weight. Now he's fighting Jessie Vargas. Jessie Vargas don't really have that much left in the tank. I'm being honest with you. But it's still curious to see from a mental standpoint what that beating he took from Earl Spence may have taken out of him. Mind you, he hasn't been in the ring in a long time, and most of the time, technical fighters, when they haven't been in the ring in a long time, they can lose a little something, especially some of their technical ability. So it's going to be. I'm curious to see if Mikey Garcia comes out, he's shooting that jab real hard right away, and he's pressing forward. Then yeah, it's probably going to be a short night for Jessie Vargas. But if Mikey Garcia comes out and he's being kind of passive and giving up ground, we can learn a little something about Mikey Garcia going into this fight. So I'm very, very curious to see what Mikey Garcia is going to show up. I remember watching, and if I'm not mistaken, I think it was it Jessie Vargas versus Thomas Delorme?
Yeah.
I remember being at that fight, and I'm with you, Mike. I was like, he had a draw with Thomas Delorme?
He struggled against a well past his prime Humberto Soto, man. I know he stopped him in 6, but Soto gave him hell in that fight up until the end.
And Mike, he got knocked down. This what got me was he got knocked down in that fight. He was up, probably gonna win, then got knocked down in that fight. In the last round, I'm like, oh crap. So yeah, I'm with you. Jessie Vargas is one of those guys, right, that was fortunate to win the belt because I think it became vacant, and he fought Saddam Ali, of all people, to win the belt. And he's a guy who got a lot of praise because he almost knocked out Timothy Braille in the last round. But this should be an easy, safe fight for Mikey Garcia. But like I said, I'm curious to see what was taken out of him from that beating from Earl Spence. If Mikey comes out, he's shooting that jab real hard, and he's pressing forward. 5 or 6, he'd probably get Jessie Vargas out of here.
Your thoughts, Daniel? Okay.
Well, that's the main thing. That's the big question when it comes to Mikey Garcia. Like, how much more mentally has he recovered from that fight with Spence? Because as far as him out of the ring, we've seen him being out of the ring for an extended amount of time of his own choosing. And granted, yeah, he stayed in the gym and he, as I kept himself up. This one is just time to recover. This would probably be the fight he should have taken first before stepping up to Spence. Because, yeah, there's not much left in Vargas, but if you want to look at something resume-wise, it is a measuring stick you can have. Especially when you're a fighter who is jumping 2 weight divisions, and it's 2 weight divisions that is a significant jump. So if I see the crisper, more some Mikey Garcia, if I see the Mikey Garcia that fought Sergey Lipnitz, then I can see a short knife for Jessie Vargas. If I see a Mikey Garcia that still has a little bit of the effects of that Errol Spence fight, I would probably just say Mikey wins, but it'll be a lot closer. Because unfortunately, Jessie Vargas has had a history of having some fights that look really close, even though sometimes they really aren't. And this could be, unfortunately, one of those cases. Everything depends on what Mikey is actually doing.
Oh, you talking about the Tim Bradley bout? What you still crying about?
Oh, not the Bradley one. No, not the Bradley one. Just his overall Las Vegas resume.
I'll go to you, Gus, to close things off. Any quick word on this fight between Mikey Garcia and Jessie Vargas?
This is a horrible fight, Mike. One that I will not be watching. You've got 2 financial mercenaries there. Extremely fortunate boxers to be there at the right time, at the right place, to take advantage or to be the recipients of the zone's utter stupidity by paying exorbitant purses for mediocre fighters in their desperate quest to gain traction in the United States.
I wouldn't go that far with Garcia, but with Vargas, yeah, the fact that he's making $1 million, I mean, what the hell? He's making $1 million fights.
That moon-headed motherfucker, Mikey Garcia, is one of the most overrated boxers I've seen in the last decade. He is atrociously bad, Mike. I've never seen any example of any competent, skillful boxing ability at all. I haven't seen it. And show me where he has exemplified it. I haven't seen it.
What was that, Bo?
I said, don't hold back, Gus. Tell us how you really feel.
No, Mike, I've got no interest in it. Look, both of these guys, they're not in any sort of political play to fight for any of the titles at 147 pounds. So it's just a money fight between the 2 of them, Mike. Maybe a little bit of rehabilitation for Mikey Garcia, but look, this is what the PBC thinks of him, because they were going to use him to get Errol Spence over, Mike. Give him his 6.5 million, whatever else, bring him up 2 weights, so Errol can beat on his ass and maybe even absorb, the Hispanic pay-per-view community, to try and make Errol Spence, who's rubbish as it is, a pay-per-view star as well. So I've got no time for this bullshit, Mike.
Hold on, wait a minute now, Gus. Hold on, wait a minute, because I got to rebuke one thing here. It was Mikey Garcia that was looking at Earl. Earl was trying to get Keith Thurman. He wasn't even thinking about Mikey. Mikey Garcia was the one that was running from Lomachenko and Jorge Linares.
Yeah, we spoke about that. I know.
Oh yeah, he was the one. Oh no! I don't. If I'm gonna lose, that's what he did. So I can't
take 2 to tango, though. But the other party has to comply as well. It's not just autocratic.
If I'm the older brother and my little brother's talking shit to me, I'm gonna beat his ass. And that's what you had. You had the little brother talking shit to your older brother. You're like, all right, come on.
Yeah. And some final thoughts here from the chat before we begin to shut things down. I too agree that Garcia should win and win rather comfortably. I just don't see it in Jessie Vargas. I've never really seen that from him as a fighter, just throughout his career, real tall. Jacob, who's on the train on his way home, says that Gonzalez. Well, in going back to our discussion about Yafai and Chocolatito, he says Gonzalez is also a very good fighter and run with his eyes. So I don't think that because he suffered that defeat, he's not good. Gonzalez wins by late KO. Official says that Jay Harris, the opponent for Martinez, he says Jay Harris is very talented and can win the rounds, but the way he jabs while keeping his head over his front foot, Martinez will counter it like he did to Rosales. He says that Martinez is the adamant. Hans history says that Mikey Garcia was never meant to win that fight against Spence. It was just about the money. And he also says he doesn't see Mikey stopping Vargas, that the fight is going to a decision. And I think we're going to start to shut the show down on that note because we're over 2 hour mark now. Again, I want to thank everybody who joined us in the chat. Jacob, Hans History, Official, who else was in here? Some other folks, excuse me, let me scroll up. Oh, L Dog, I can't forget L Dog. Sean, Buddy Aces, Killer 1911, Joe 56984. Who else? I said Buddy Aces, he was in here, and some more. Bo, you was in the chat earlier. B Space as well. I want to thank everybody. C Star as well in the chat. If you like what you've heard, Ridian Smith, shout out to him. He was in the chat. If you like what you heard, please hit that like button and please hit that subscribe button. And also subscribe to us on iTunes and on Spotify. Leave a 5-star review on iTunes in particular, and I will read it on the show. Going to go around the panel here. Again, want to thank Gail from Community Digital News. Want to thank Jacob from Jab Hook for joining us on the show. Going to go around the panel here. Going to start with you, Gus. For those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk music, let the folks know where they can hit you up.
Yeah, first of all, Mike, that was an excellent insight from Official 4 Scorecard regarding, the potential limitation of Jay Harris that Martinez may be able to exploit. Big shout out to Official and El Dog, very knowledgeable guys, and it was a tremendous. These guys were with me, Mike, on a marathon hangout. We were on for like 12, 13, 14 hours respectively. So big hello to those guys. Everybody else in the chat as well. Bo, a boy from Chicago, nice to see him back in a while. Big shout out to Jacob and Gail as well. Yeah, Mike, corruption in boxing. That's 2 shows in 2 weeks, so the part-timer is slowly getting back to the program. Yeah. Watch out, some videos, film analysis are going to be forthcoming. I'm going to start, really hopefully producing some high quality content. It's the reason why I haven't done it. I've not really been happy with the aesthetics of my work thus far. So, I'm a perfectionist. I want to get down and start doing, professional videos, something that my knowledge can sort of, complement. So, patience, I'll get there.
Indeed. Thanks for joining us once again. Going to you, Daniel from the Inscriber, for those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk the NBA, especially as it pertains to the Miami Heat, who unfortunately lost earlier this evening at home, I think to Minnesota. Let the folks know where they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter at Rawkus99, RAWKUZ99. And yes, definitely catch on in the show. Like I said, I'm going to cover a lot of sports going into it. I think my next piece on this is going to be actually interesting enough about the MLS, because after almost a 20-year hiatus, Miami's going to have an MLS team this Sunday.
And yeah, check out his work on SoundCloud. He did a excellent recent breakdown of some roster moves involving the Miami Heat. I had to get a like. I had to hit that like button for his analysis as it pertains to my not only the trade deadline of the Miami Heat as well as his thoughts on the retirement ceremony for one Dwayne Wade. Going to you last but certainly not least, Bo, both from the general. No, excuse me, the lieutenant of Three Kings Boxing, as well as the man behind Truth and Facts Sports Talk. Let the folks, if for folks who want to talk boxing, let the folks know where they can find you and talk a little bit about your apps because you do have some apps out there that
Yeah,
people should be checking out.
yeah, got an app, Zombie Hunter. Um, got another app, Car Shooter. So that's going on. Fortunately, the business of the sketch is over. My daughter turned 19. She don't want to do it no more. She don't want to hang out with dad. She found the winning thing to bribe me with, peanut butter M&M. So long she got me, Mike. But I do want to thank Jacob and of course Gail for always coming. Everybody for being here. My man Corruption and Box for being here. It's been a trying time for all of us. Big shout out to my man Daniel. I miss seeing that 4-eyed chubby dude.
I own it at least.
Right. For boxing news. And I just want to say that it's always nice when you can talk to people that have common sense, people that are willing to listen, people that know how to talk, share, and whether it's agree to disagree or have a reasonable dispute. We don't always have to agree with each other, but we always do respect each other. And that's what I like about this show. That's what I like about the show with my man, 2K. He likes to say he's the boss, but no, he isn't. I am. And I'm so glad to be here, Mike. And as always, welcome. I made the show.
2K reach out to me.
Yeah.
Just to have him on the last minute to say, look here, Bo.
Yeah. and to end it up, just remember, pound for pound boxing is great because of me.
I will let him get away with that.
He's fortunate he's in Chicago, Mike.
Hey man, I'm gonna let him get away with that because look, man, he's the guy who personally invited me over to join the Three Kings Boxing family. I'm always indebted to him for that by way of this his appearances here on Pound for Pound Box Report. And so the reason you read my writings over on Three Kings Boxing is directly because of him. He invited me talk with the boss over there, 2K, and for the past year plus now, I have been on the Three Kings Boxing fam as a writer. So I let him get his jokes off because of that. For those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk music, fitness, you know what it is on Twitter, Brother JR, at Brother JR76 on Twitter. As I said at the beginning of the show, for those who want to check out all things regarding Pound for Pound Box Report, the blog page is the place to go to, p4pboxreport.wordpress.com. The link, top right of the blog page, you'll find links to where to find us, follow us all over social media, where to find the show on all platforms that carry RSS feed, the links to where you can donate via PayPal and Cash Me, and the links to my online fitness page. I am an online coach for Beachbody. On the next episode, and if you're interested in any fitness challenges or challenge packs or anything like that, just hit me up on Twitter. Just hit me up with a comment on the blog page. For those on the next episode, we will do a recap of the design card that's happening on the 29th. Mikey Garcia, Jessie, Vargas, Yafai versus Chocolatito, Gonzalez, Julio, Cesar, Martinez, J. Harris, and we will do a preview of box is going to be real light on the week of March 7th, but there are certainly some fights worth noting. Scott Quigg will be fighting John O'Carroll. That's going to be a DAZN card in Manchester, England. On Fox, Adam Kanaki, he's going to be fighting Robert Hellenius. Efe Jagba, promising heavyweight prospect, he's going to be fighting on the undercard of that. So we will talk about those bouts. So this has been episode 283 of Pound Boxer Report. Once again, I want to thank everybody who joined us in the live YouTube chat. Thank you for your questions and your comments. I want to thank Gail and Jacob for joining us earlier. For Gus, for Daniel, for Bo, I am your host, Michael. Episode 283 in the books. We'll see you guys next time. Everyone have a good evening. Good night.
Sayonara.
Adios.